So this is like the Hunger Games of real estate. And when the tide goes out, you could see who's wearing pants or not. So for people that aren't skilled and don't know how to sell, it's a rude, kind of harsh awakening. But if you want to ramp up that learning curve, I would propose spending lots of time in role playing and practicing to learn the actual conversation, so that way you can convert opportunities into contracts being signed. Also, the riches are in the niches. So picking a niche of some sort that you can learn and take the time to learn now, that'll serve you in perpetuity. Because what I'm aware of is those niches don't go away when the marketplace gets great.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Vulcan 7 Coaches and Mentors, where we bring you some of the best in the industry that share with you some of the tips and strategies so that you can implement in your business right now. Now, with that being said, today's guest, we're going to share with you exactly what you need to be doing right now as the market is changing. There's a lot of uncertainties, and perhaps a lot of you are wondering what to even focus on. So with that being said, I want to welcome Aaron Novello. So welcome, Aaron.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, so for everyone that's watching that maybe is not familiar with you, can you share with us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I've been in the real estate industry since 2006. My first calendar year, I made $13,000. Not something people would bring you on the Coaches and Mentors podcast to talk about. And it's because I had an inaccurate assessment of reality. I had a lot of people that were telling me things like wear my name tag at the grocery store and smile at people or sit in open houses. And it wasn't until I got an accurate assessment of reality and realized what this game actually is, which is a direct, hardcore sales business. And it allowed me to focus my energy once I got that accurate assessment in places that actually, would pay off, like role playing and practicing, like prospecting. And once I got that accurate assessment, next calendar year, I did 17 transactions, then 50, then 79, then 89, then 100, did over 100 a year for 10 years in a row, did 200 deals a year twice.
That's awesome. So obviously, a lot of the agents that come to us that are probably watching this might be at a place where they are looking to transition from perhaps working with buyers to now they want to focus on listings, or they want more consistent business pretty much.
Yeah.
So for you, what was a turning point? I know that you went from, doing a very small amount in the beginning, and then you kind of were able to figure out what you needed to focus on. So what would be some of the things that you would say to those agents?
Yeah. So the first thing is that the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. So in other words, people expect good service. They expect you to understand how to read contracts. They expect you to how to negotiate. It's kind of like the way I describe it to people. When you go to Whole Foods, like, you don't jump up and down because they have groceries. You expect that, right? But the money's not there. The money is learning how to sell the service. So if I'm giving a talk and there's, 500 agents in the room, I say, hey, we all have the same kind of license that allows us to perform the same service? The answer is yes. The question is, do we all make the same amount of money? The answer is no. And the question is why? Some of us know how to sell the service better than others. So if I'm going to use my time, which we get about 27,550 days on planet Earth, that's the average. That's about 75 years in the industrialized world. Women have a tendency to live more than men. I'm 42, so I've used over half. Whatever's left, I'm going to sleep through a third of it. So that whole exercise is just to demonstrate there's not that much time. So if I'm going to spend some of my time, I want to make sure that I'm stacking it on top of an activity that compounds and is leveraged, right? And in our game, learning how to sell, learning how to have sales conversations, prospecting, and taking someone that you don't know, and then them deciding that they want to sit down with you and have a conversation, you pre-qualify that, handle objections, get a contract signed. That is a skill that is worth stacking your time on top of. So at the beginning of my career, I didn't know that. Once I got that accurate assessment, though, what I did is I spent, I role played twice a day, 6 days a week for 3 years in a row, because I recognize that there's no security in this business. There's only opportunities. So if I can get my skill set to such a degree that if there is an opportunity, I'll be able to execute on it, I've just created security for myself and my family. Yes. So that's the first thing that I would say. And what I would propose is when a marketplace is great, it masks incompetency. And I mean that lovingly. Like in the previous market, you could be a rum dum, show up in flip flops and make 100 grand. That is no longer the case. Like you have to be very skilled. The last time we had 4 million transactions in the United States, which is what we're projected to have from 6 million, was in 2009. And we only had 990,000 agents. We have like 1.6 million agents. So this is like the Hunger Games of real estate. And when the tide goes out, you could see who's wearing pants or not. So for people that aren't skilled and don't know how to sell, it's a rude, kind of harsh awakening. But if you want to ramp up that learning curve, I would propose spending lots of time in role playing and practicing to learn the actual conversation, so that way you can convert opportunities into contracts being signed.
Absolutely. And I feel that that is something that agents should be doing, whether it's now or 5 years ago. But for you specifically, what are you teaching your agents now that you weren't maybe covering so much 2 years ago?
Yeah. So it's dealing with a shortage of inventory, because the truth is 90%, hear me, 90% of everybody who owns a home right now and has a mortgage that's less than 6%. 60% have mortgages that are less than 4%. So I'm aware, like, people listening to this will shop on Amazon for 3 hours to save $20. And you get all mad because like somebody doesn't want to sell their home and trade a 4% rate for an 8% rate. It's like, of course they don't want to do that. So the only people that are going to actually do something right now are people that have to. So those would be life events like death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, things of that nature. So what I'm laying out is a comprehensive, intentional plan to actually deal with a shortage of inventory. You need to give me tactical information that I can use to actually deal with the marketplace, right? Because our ability to deal with reality is directly correlated with getting what we want, period. So here's how we're sharing with them to deal with reality. The first is having a niche of some sort, because the riches are in the niches. So for me in Florida, we have the largest elderly population in the country. 50% of our business was probate and estates. It's market resistant. 65% of those homes are free and clear. And if they do want to sell, very highly motivated. Now, across the country, that is still the case. It may not be in as high in numbers as it is in Florida, because we have a super large elderly population, but it is a wonderful source. Also, divorce, right, happens 50-something% of the time. And often there's a home that needs to be sold. So picking a niche of some sort that you can learn and take the time to learn now, that'll serve you in perpetuity. Because what I'm aware of is those niches don't go away when the marketplace gets great. I mean, they're still there. We're suggesting volume, because what we do does not change. How much of it we do and how we do it is what changes based on market dynamics. So in 2020, 2021, whatever, you could make 7 contacts a day and make 100 grand. Yeah. Now it probably needs to be 3 times that amount. So personally, as an agent, I would propose 20 to 30 per day, 5 to 6 days a week. That's 6 days, Saturdays. I did that religiously for my career. You add an extra 40 something days of prospecting, 50 days of prospecting, which is a whole month, right? And if you have a great appointment, you can go on it. If not, you just call it a day and do whatever you want. But doing that 6 days a week. And then if you wanted to really ramp up volume, having people make calls on your behalf, whether those be VAs or telemarketers. So now you're making 100 contacts a day. So if you implement these things, you have a niche that you can go directly to that is a life event, right? You are getting people to raise their hand. You're making 20, 30 contacts a day, plus you got people calling. You are directly dealing with a shortage of inventory, and you'll still be able to get your unfair share in this environment.
Awesome. Now, is there a brutally honest piece of advice that you would give perhaps newer agents or just agents regarding prospecting now?
Yeah. I mean, it's just that, like, look, there's a reason that there's an 80% attrition rate. So in the first year of getting a license, 80% of the people who get a license are doing something else within a year. And there's a reason, because they don't understand what they're getting into, which is a direct, hardcore sales business that requires you to prospect. And the thing that I want everybody to really recognize is your job as a salesperson is to be in the presence of prospects, period. It is not to do paperwork. It is not to, answer calls. It's to be in the presence of prospects. And truthfully, I don't care how you're in the presence of prospects as long as you're doing it, right? So if for you prospecting is pumping out loads of content so you can be in front of people all the time, great. If it's banging on the phone and prospecting 6 days a week and making 20, 30 contacts a day, great. My suggestion, do both. So that way you're increasing the probability that you're going to be in the presence of prospects long enough. The other thing I would say is that anybody can do this job like a day a week. Some people can do it 2 days a week. There's very few people that can do it 5 to 6 days a week. If you can, and you can turn yourself into the type of person that can do that, if you know how to sell, you will be disproportionately rewarded for your efforts. Like you can literally make millions of dollars a year selling real estate. You could sell as much as you want. So what I would suggest is that, you might be saying to yourself like, hey, like, why me? Why is this happening right now? Here's a really good question. Instead of it happening to you, why is it happening for you? So you want to be a rock star salesperson? Great. I'm going to give you a tough environment. And it'll force you to get faster, quicker, stronger. Because what I didn't mention in that intro is in 2007, my mom had a brain bleed. And I shut down my business and moved marketplaces and started over from scratch. And then 2008 happened, which was an absolute collapse. Not what we're experiencing now. This is like a little blip. That was, financial institutions going out of business. That was 40% of everything on the market was foreclosures. And prices were going down 30% a year, right? So what I'm aware of is I would prefer that not have happened to my mom. At the same time, you know what that forced me to be? Faster, quicker, stronger from a mental perspective, better at prospecting, because I got thrown into an environment where everybody was running for the hills and telling me like, hey, this is like the worst time to be selling real estate. When in fact, I grew my business by 25% year over year. And it laid the foundation for, doing thousands of transactions moving forward.
So for agents that are maybe looking to transition from being buyer's agents to now solely focus on listings, what would be some of the first steps for them to start to take?
Yeah. So one is they have to really like make a decision. So it means to kill off any other option, right? So they have to decide this is what I'm going to do. So to give an example, once I made that decision, I didn't even own an e-key for like 14 years. I couldn't even show property even if I wanted to. It wasn't even an option. I didn't even think about it as a way of making money. The only thing I focused on was prospect, lead, follow, go on appointments, negotiate deals. The only way I personally earned income was through listing property and selling. So you have to make a decision, not like this, like, oh, I'm going to dabble with it because I kind of have to right now. It's like, no, this is like because it's going to require a lot. When you think about it, I mean, there's 20,000 agents in the multiple listing service, and there's only 100 in my multiple listing service. There's only 100 that do over 20 million in volume. That's it. So you have like 20,000 people competing for 100 jobs. So if that's what's true, it's like, okay, what would your schedule look like? Would you be a listing agent or work with buyers? What would your, kind of regiment be with how you take care of your body? And like, what would your regiment be with what you're reading and how many books you're reading? Like if I was to look at your library, would I say like, hey, you're a serious student of sales? Or would I be like, hey, you're a serious student of the Kardashians? Like, what are you focusing your time and energy on? So the first one is make a decision. The second is you have to ramp up the learning curve, because the challenge is that with working with buyers, there's very little rejection. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to work with sellers, you're going to need to get a PhD in rejection. You're going to get rejected. Like I remember standing in front of a room of people. I was giving a talk. I'm like, yeah, I talked to 7,000 people this year. I got 142 to say yes. And everybody looked at me like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, you're just not willing to hear no that many times. So you have to recognize that that's what's true, but you also have to ramp up the skill, because at first you're going to have to make at first I had to make like 200 contacts to set one appointment. Mm-hmm. Where now I could be on the phone and make 12 contacts and set 2 appointments. So you have to ramp up the skill set, really practice. I would get into a role play group. We have one. I know other people have one, but I would get proximity to somebody who can get you connected, get you the scripts. And then like, you got to start be in the presence of prospects, however that is, whether that's knocking on doors, calling people, start making those contacts. I would record what you sound like, send it to somebody like a mentor or a teacher or somebody who can give you some feedback as far as what's going on and how you can improve. And then, if you do that, if you sincerely do that and you're making between 20, 30 contacts a day, you're going to you don't have to be good. You just have to be there. Like you're going to set an appointment. Every squirrel gets a nut. You're going to bump into somebody and then you'll be off to the races.
And something that you mentioned a few minutes ago was you have role play and also the proximity to someone that has already done it or is doing it at a high level. So go ahead and tell us about your coaching or programs that you have to help agents in case anyone that's listening is interested in joining that.
Yeah, so a couple things. We have classes that are online in 23 countries and 8 languages that teach people what to say and how to say it. So I recognize a lot of people would want to role play with me. And I would say, well, I'm only one person. So how could I actually make myself available to more people? And that's where those courses came from. So whether it's for sale by owners, expires, I did 100 deals, 75 were expireds one year. Pre-qual, the actual listing presentation, handling objections, presenting offers. You get all 7 of those in a bundle. That's a course online that you can watch whenever you want, as frequently as you want. There's no limitations. We also have a role play group that guarantees a role play partner 5 days a week. All they have to do is just show up. We handle all the scheduling for them. If they don't show up and they don't give us 24-hour notice 3 times, we kick them out. And if they pay us and they don't show up and give us 24-hour notice, we still kick them out. We don't give them their money back because the strength of the group is based on the consistency of its members. And what I've done is I've recreated the same environment for myself, which is where I role play twice a day, 6 days a week. So we have one in the morning at 7:30, which is for setting appointments. And we have one in the afternoon at 11:30 just for the listing presentation. Because you can't get good at something you don't do all the time. You should not be practicing on potential listings because they're worth too much money, 10, 15, 20, 25,000 bucks, right? And then we have a group coaching call that I lead as well, which is for an hour, once a week via Zoom, where I hop on and add value and, share with people skills, mindset, systems, things of that nature to help them to be as successful as they possibly can.
Awesome. So is there a website where people can go or how can they find you?
Yeah, AaronNovello.com.
Okay. There you go. So Aaron, thank you so much for all of the information that you've dropped today. I know that a lot of the agents that are watching this will now be able to implement a lot of the tips and strategies that you mentioned. What would be the last tip that you would leave everyone watching just so that they can go out there and start doing?
Yeah. So I think really recognizing that this is like an enormous opportunity. So you might as well take full advantage of it.
There you go. Awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you once again. We're going to make sure to put all of your links in the description box below. So with that being said, thank you everyone for watching and we'll see you on the next one.
Awesome. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.